just had to set things up then. I don't know why everything got a bit complicated. Anyway, this was last night, so I don't know if you saw this one. Yeah, found some images that were more inspiring, shall we say, as for me, to sort of allow me to be a little bit more adventurous. Plus the fact that I kind of wanted that. I felt myself being dragged towards the sort of the production side of things, and and as a consequence, I put that up. I put that one you've just seen up, and another one, and someone said about it. They said it was proof of regular practice, the confidence of regular practice, or something, and a little bit of me was insulted, and which is crazy, really, because it's meant as a compliment, obviously, but then it gets me thinking about the confidence thing. I'm gonna draw this lady, by the way, showgirl by the looks of it, but seen from a film probably, so it got me thinking about the confidence, and it's there's no doubt that doing something a lot. I mean, regularity is relative, isn't it? But there's no doubt that doing something frequently will result in you getting good at it. Let me just get the size of things right before I start going crazy. And I do it regularly, as you know, every day, and have done for the last 4 or 5 years. But none of that's deliberate, if that makes sense. Deliberate in the sense that the way that I go about doing this, it's not. I haven't set out to deliberately practice a particular way of doing it. And that, I think, is the thing. So if for instance, I've actually got a script on it, and I'm trying to, if I lose my way, I can just dive back in again. It sounds like I haven't got a script. Most of the time I don't, but I just thought what I'm gonna do is do some kind of article, kind of a document of this is how I see the confidence and and I suppose approach, really. So I'm doing this every day because it brings me joy. I say that all the time. You hear me say it all the time. I just love doing this, and the outcome. And this is the other thing about it as well, is that the practice. So this person says, I don't want to give it away too much. This person says that's the result of regular practice. If the confidence thing and the regular practice thing was a significant part of this, which it is. I'm not saying it isn't, but if it was, and but I'd done it in a certain way. This is the determination of outcome, and an established route kind of approach. Every time I did it, it would be successful, and it would meet an outcome. But it doesn't. It's not always successful for me, and that for me is whilst ever that happens, I'm happy. I don't want it to be successful every time. If it is, then I've lost it. I get back in. I don't want that. I don't want it to be perfect every time, to work every time. That just means that I'm going to lose the creativity. Isn't perfect every time. It can't be, can it? It can't be. Think about it. It's not a formulaic thing. It just you be creative. Sometimes it's a spontaneous thing. We're going to lose connection, I think, on this, as usual with YouTube now these days. It's not the service has gone down the pan, I'm afraid, but I'm going to continue to record it, and hopefully it'll be worth editing and putting up later. It may not be. I might just ramble myself into oblivion. But my motives are simply the joy thing. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, because of that sort of simplistic, if you like, approach to it, just having fun, just enjoying it, being like a child kind of thing, just please myself. But there has to be other things involved in this, not just simply response. I mean, obviously response is the number one thing, so it's my human response to another human, a persona, but there has to be that padded out, this sort of, if it's a human response to another human, then what am I responding to? I'm responding to their essence, and I'm trying to capture the feeling, the emotional element of this face of this person. I'm trying to capture that. So I'm focusing on the emotional element of it. So emotional observation is what I'm doing, and that really isn't something that can be formalized. We all have the skill to connect to other humans, and that's really what should feed this. All great portraits capture the essence of the subject, regardless of its execution. So, but the problem is with the other route, the confidence route, which is built on regular practice in a certain way, because it's an established route. That can actually be detrimental, because you'll be just become really good at doing it, and they'll be hollow and shallow and devoid of any humanity, because they're just brilliant executions and nothing else. So that's the danger. That's the thing that I don't want to go near, because I just think that when that happens, everything is lost. The marks that I make are responsive marks. It's not a consideration that this mark should be that way or that way, or done with this or done with that. And I deliberately use tools that aren't suitable, if you like, things that aren't ideal for doing this, so that I have to think on my feet and have to respond to whatever marks are being made. And that keeps me engaged with the subject. That's what I do. So the confidence thing, it may appear to be a confident mark making thing. It's more to do with being fearless in the mark making. It's primarily a response. That's it. It's just a responsive mark making thing. It's observation, obviously. It's observation both in terms of visual and in emotional observation. But it's not fettered by or hindered by the possibility that this may not work. So it's fearless. That's what it is. And I've talked about being fearless before, and that's really what it is. But it's not that kind of bravery thing. It's like I don't really give a damn thing. That's what it is. This is not for me to consider whether or not this is a perfect line in somebody else's rule book. This is whatever marks I make are my marks. They're not for someone else to decide on whether they're good or bad or different marks. There's nothing to do with that. So I have no fear of not achieving someone else's criteria. I just want to do what I want to do and meet my own criteria, if you like. I don't really have a criteria other than, as I said, I want to capture the essence of this face, of this persona. But it's not. It sounds complicated, but it's not. By comparison to the other route, the regular practice and controlled and deliberate and all the rest of it, this is a breeze, because it's nothing that's it's nothing you can't already do, basically. So because it's built on your human response. The technical side of things are simply a consequence of that. It's not really oh, I'm going to get really good at making fine lines kind of thing, and I'm going to, you know, precision and all the rest of it. None of that. It's not really that. The skills that you develop to be able to capture a face are a consequence of your primary intention, which is to capture their essence and respond to that essence. So that anything that grows out of that, this ability to get things in the right place and all the rest of it, all of those things are driven by that. They're not. It's not from a place of established roots. It's not somebody else's decision as to how this should be done. This is the other thing as well, is that if you're going down the other route of regular practice, and it has to, in order to become confident and so on and so forth, that established route that you're going to take is somebody else's route, just as the outcome will be somebody else's outcome, and that's not what your creativity deserves. Your creativity deserves your creativity to be its own definition, not somebody else's. So in that respect, you're by finding somebody else's route, by defining that they've defined, and then doing that on a repetitive basis, practice, you're not allowing yourself to be you. That's the thing. It's tried and it's a little bit tired now. The Picasso statement about it takes 60 years to be able to paint like a child, but what he was referring to was this essence, this ability to connect with and respond to the world around them without any kind of knowledge or experience or practice. The purity of that response is what he was referring to, and that we're, as adults, we can, we probably could do it as a child better than we can now, but being able to respond to something purely is the goal, and especially with portraits, because that's the thing. If there's one thing, you can respond to a great vista, you looking over the mountains or whatever, you can respond to that and it'll move you to want to paint it. But with a human, there's the other part of it as well, which is this emotional connection thing. That person is going to communicate on a deeper level to you, and that's what you need to interpret. That's what you need to respond to. So from a portrait point of view, that's fantastic. And the thing is that, as I said, you can already do that. We've been doing it all our lives. We every day you meet somebody and you communicate on a different level, a deeper level. You understand their mood. You pick up on their response. You do all that kind of stuff. Just applying that skill that you already have is the beginnings of your portrait. So, and that's what you need to tap into. But all of that is overridden once you think it's about regular practice in a particular way, because it's not that isn't part of that. The regular practice is the bones in the nose, or the head structure, or whatever. That's the regular practice thing, and that is that's the killer. That's the bit that's the bit that makes you have to do it for 10 years before you get any good at it. That's the bit that sometimes stops you from doing it, and it's also the bit that gets in the way at the end of all this practice that you've done in order to build your confidence. At the end of all that practice, you still have to employ this emotional response thing in order for it to be your own particular response. So what you do, and this is the skill, technique, style route that people take. What you do is you start to play with styles. You'll change the way the brushes you use and all the rest of it. But in fact, all of those decisions, the size of the brush and the marks that you make and all that sort of thing, should have been happening in the first instance. When you were first responding to a face, that's when they should be part of what you're doing, because they are part of the response. The marks that you make, whether they're loose or precise or whatever, they are to do with your response. They're not a conscious decision that you can try at the end of your skill development. And that's the thing, you see. It's like, I have this discussion all the time. If art isn't skill, what is it? The people will say to me. Well, I can't answer that question, because for someone to ask that question, they are a particular, they are of a particular type that probably wouldn't understand exactly what this is about. It's still, to them, it is still a skill thing. No matter what I say, they would never comprehend what I was saying if I think it's more than skill. Skill is just a means to end. So developing skills isn't the beginning of your journey or the end of your journey. It's the beginning. It's that thing about, if you think that replicating the world in such a way that it's indistinguishable from reality, then you're on the beginning of the journey, not the end. I don't know who said that, but that's amazing. So you just, that's the truth of it. And a lot of people just think it's the conclusion. Once you've developed all those skills, that's the conclusion, and then it becomes, it's very much a expected wisdom thing. That's what people think it is. That's why there's so much store put by the great, so-called great painters and masters, and how they went about doing it, and the desire to replicate their process is an indication of how little creativity plays a part in what we do. It is a creative act. There's no doubt about it. This is the means by which creativity becomes reality. But this is not creativity. The doing of it is not the creativity. The outcome is not the creativity. The doing, the engagement, the process, the way that you engage with the world is the creative bit. So, so if that drives the way that you make marks and decide to make marks and just respond full stop, then that's what it should be. And if it is loose and if it is tight, and that's it, it's just, that's you. Obviously there's going to be lots of conditioning involved in that, because you've spent a life, like I did, looking at illustrations and sergeants and all the rest of it. So we kind of get conditioned to do the predictable, and also measure ourselves by those predictable outcomes. But you can't help that, can you? We are the world that we exist in, and it's this thing about the appreciation of art. If you live in an uncultured environment, or you've been reared in an uncultured environment where there's not a lot of aesthetic stimulus, then you're going to be pretty much devoid of any kind of understanding of what creativity really is. And this is the thing about, if you're like me and you come from a family of non-creatives, their only measure of how creative I was, or at the time, if I was ever doing it, was how well I could replicate something. It looks like a photograph. It was the stock comment. And I've got friends who are just wound up by that people say that to them. But that's not, whoever says that, it's not their fault. It's just simply that they've not experienced enough, aesthetic stimulus, if you like. I know there's an element of you've got to really ask the questions in order to understand on a kind of deeper level. But nevertheless, if you're just around pretty things, if you're just around creative and stimulating things, it's going to form the way you see things. It's going to inform the way you see things, and as well as form the way you see things. But I think the difficult thing for me is that, and getting this across, and I say I'm going to write all this down and put it in some kind of article or something. But the difficult thing for me is that I come at it from a point of view of, this is just my human response to something. This is not, I'm not trying to create fantastic portraits that meet criteria of some kind, or can be defined as, which is why I don't bother with things like exhibitions or competitions. I'm not trying to be part of that scene, because to me it's irrelevant. It's not really part of what I'm trying to do or what I do. I'm not trying to do anything. I just do it, and it happens. But it's driven by this understanding that portraits are an emotional response, and everything that I do, marks that I make, obviously the observation side of it, the thing when I get things in the right place, which is born from the or built on the 3 dots thing. That was just, and the reason why it's 3 dots was because what was the simplest way that I could get my develop my observation in order to achieve what I wanted to achieve. Because at the end of the day, it's still about, for me, it's still about the manifestation element of it. It has to manifest in a way that I think encapsulates my response. So I needed to have certain craft skills, and that was where the dots came in. But other than that, it's not a quantifiable thing as such. If I was to say that, and I said it yesterday when I was talking about the in the lesson yesterday, we're talking about being in the right frame of mind to do this. That is it's and everybody says that, they're in the mood, or they lost the mojo and all that kind of stuff. So everybody knows that being in the right emotional state to do this is important. So my that's where I come from. That's where I think is the place to start. I have to be in the right frame of mind to do this. I'm fortunate that I can make myself be in the right frame of mind. It's not a sort of lighting candles and turn the radio on kind of thing. It's just that I feel, I think it's I said earlier about the habit thing, or the need to do it. I think it's to do with the fact that I enjoy doing it, and the simple fact that if you enjoy doing something, it's very difficult not to keep doing it. If it's stimulated, if it's a kid in a sweet shop thing, you get a belly full, don't you? And that, I think that's it. I can't stop doing it because I love doing it. But it's gone. So that was the first. When the habit was forming, that was my first reaction. But now, because it's now an addiction, because I think I'm pretty much addicted to doing it. It's a different thing now. I can't, it's almost like a day can't go by without me doing it at least once. And if I've not done it at all, it's really, I feel almost ill, because I'm concerned, shall we say, that I haven't done it. So, and that's not a desire to get better. I'm not thinking, if I don't do it, I'm going to lose me. Because you hear that as well. People say, "Oh, I've lost my line." I used to say that. I used to say when I was illustrating, I lost my line, and I know I'd heard people say that before, but it's not that. It's not the if I don't do it, I'm going to forget how to do it thing, because it's not, it's not me. That's not how it works for me. But as I said, my problem is this, that my chair's squeaking bad today. Sorry about that. The problem is that to try and get people to understand this is really difficult. I mean, I'm only doing it because it works for me, and I want other people to at least give it a go. I'm not doing it because this is the right way, and so on. It's not. There are 1,000 ways to make portraits, and people have different criteria for outcome. But that's fine, and that's how it should be. But all I'm saying is that from my point of view, being able to do it and to achieve an outcome that pleases, that meets my criteria, my desire to capture, the essence of someone, this more responsive and emotional approach is much more effective for me. I'll tell you why. Another reason why it's effective is because I don't get bogged down by the technical execution of it. I don't get bogged down by, is that smooth enough? Is that blended enough? Have I got the pause right on there? Are the eyelashes right? I don't get bogged down by any of that, because it's all irrelevant to the way I do it. It has to feel, first and foremost, it has to feel like the subject. That's it. That if I achieve that, like with this, for instance, if I achieve that, then I've done. I don't need to go any further with it. I mean, I can do, and I will do, but I don't have to, because I've done what all portraits should do, and that's to capture the essence. So I can effectively stop, and that all of this into everything that you hear people talking about. When do I can't stop. When is it finished? I mean, if anybody says that, it's generally because they think it's a production, and they're locked into the process of producing a portrait. But that's just this, whatever, going back to the competence thing, this regular practice thing, and that's just about everybody gets to that point. When is it done? I mean, I, as a designer, people used to say, when is it done? I used to say, when you take it off me, but that's not in this case. That's not the right answer for an artist. I mean, it's a silly answer, but if you've caught the essence of someone, that's all that matters. That's the only thing that matters. And if the lines aren't right, or if it's a bit broken up and things are in the wrong place, and it doesn't matter. That's kind of irrelevant. But the thing about it is that if you don't have the right kind of mindset to do that, then you could never do that. You could never just settle for these marks on a face. You could never settle for that, because you're locked into the idea that this is a production, and you have to meet a certain standard and all the rest of it. And I'm about to start losing this now, and the freshness of it, because I'm starting to draw parts of it, and so I'm going to start. The moment I started to mess with the balance of tones, one of the things you hear me talk about a lot is the balance of tones, and you can see how this is pushing the side of her mouth out, for instance, there. But I can fix that. But at the same time, I've got to be careful if I fix that, because I don't want it to lose the freshness of of the spontaneous response. Anyway, that's it. I think that, as I said, confidence is an important thing, but you've got to be careful about how you define or build that confidence, because it can be a detrimental thing, which is crazy. I think that the sign that you're doing it right is that you keep making mistakes, and that it's not always perfect, and it's never the same twice. And that's another thing that I try and do that with different mediums. So I'll use different mediums in order to make sure that I'm not locked into a regular outcome kind of situation. So I don't want it to be perfect every time. I expect to have what I call misfires, because I've failed to connect properly with the subject. All that, I expect those things. If I don't get those things, then I know that there's something wrong. It's getting a bit too safe. For me, creativity isn't safe. It's got to be something that's completely unpredictable. It's like I'm going to say like an explosion, but you could probably predict an explosion. But it is something that is not predictable. It will be what it'll be. That in itself, accepting that, is a big thing. It's hard, that, because if you've got expectations of outcomes, and expecting to turn out a certain way, then if it doesn't turn out a certain way, you think you failed. But if you can accept that it'll be whatever it'll be, but it only works if you truly, are on board with the the response side of it. It only works if you do that, and then from the this is a responsive thing. This is my creativity responding to something. From that, everything else is built. The whether it's the choice of subject or whether it's the marks that you make, everything's built on that, and your understanding, acceptance, and all the rest of it is built on that idea that it'll be whatever it'll be. So you'll not get tight and want to be imprecise. You'll not get tight and want to draw eyelashes and all that. You might, because you're even though you've got a responsive approach and you're in the it'll be what it'll be kind of frame of mind, you still might have a desire. Your creativity might manifest in a precise and controlled way. That's the whole point. That we all have a different outcome that's based on our own creative response. That's the whole point. So rather than trying to adopt somebody else's creative response, doing it their way, you ultimately evolve your own way of doing it, and it manifests truly in your own creative way. But anyway, I'll love you, leave you. I'm going to convert this into a video because they get shown better if they're videos rather than lives. Never seem to see the light of day. But I'm going to write up this thesis. Maybe it won't be a thesis. It's just going to be a few paragraphs. But my approach to this idea of building confidence to do this, and other things as well. I mean, I think that there are. It's almost like there's a chain reaction to having this kind of attitude, that there will be, if you think this way, then this will happen. It's the same with the other one. And I've written this down, this script. I mean, it's sort of, if you think it's regular practice, you've got to figure out what you need to practice and why. So you have to establish or determine an outcome. I'm reading from the script, but sometimes the outcome is not necessarily your outcome. You can be conditioned to expect or told that this is what a great portrait is, and consequently you have to work towards that, even though it's not. You don't have to. It's a subliminal conditioning. And so when you've identified what you want to achieve, then you can then identify what you need to practice, and you adopt a process to practice. You regularly draw eyes and nose. You draw thousands of eyes and thousands of nose, because that's how you get better. People keep telling you, I keep saying, keep doing it, keep practicing. That's what they'll tell you, and it takes time. There's all the kinds of things that people tell you as you're struggling to try and draw faces, and the worst thing, I suppose, is you set yourself milestones, or not necessarily in a production planning kind of way, but in terms of your own reflection and assessment of your evolution. But you use the outcome that you already predetermined as your guide, as your yardstick, and the problem with that is that it has somebody else's outcome. So this is the problem. So just as with my approach, which is more emotionally responsive type of things, and there's a connectivity of all the components that are required to get to this, and you can see how they all work together. It's the same if you adopt the other route. I think both routes are benefit from doing it regularly, but the motives for doing it regularly is different in both cases, really. Or the motivation for doing it is different. So it's and ultimately it appears like confidence, but it's not really confidence that you see when I do it. Just with others, it might. You see some great charcoal artists and portrait artists, and you can see, the confidence because they've learnt their craft, as they say, and that it is clearly confidence. That, and if that's your end game, providing you understand what you're doing, then I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's what you should do. But for me, I just think, as I said earlier, there's just a different way. And I was making portraits that I was happy with within probably 3 months, probably less than that. So I would say that was, from my point of view, the end game. I wanted to get to a point where I was happy with it. That's all I wanted. It wasn't for anybody else. It was for me. I said that at the time. This is not for anybody else. This is for me. So that was, I basically achieved what I wanted to do, and then ultimately just doing things that I love doing. That's the ultimate thing that I think I wanted to achieve. I just wanted to do things for joy, and the reason for that is because I recovered from cancer and I wanted to live a more joyful life and all the rest of it. So that's where that came from. Anyway, as I said, I'm going to go now because I'm just going to lose this if I carry on. Just need to fix that, but yeah, we're done.